Hi, it's me, Ingrid Wynne P. And I'm outside the library and just being happy about that there's some rays of sunlight. I hope that you guys don't have too much wind that is, coming towards the phone's microphone. I've been talking about different books that I was reading, so I just wanted to review The Secret Garden and Howl's Moving Castle, two children's books that I think that adults can gain something out of reading, and I think that these are good for INFPs to read, because you might find some things that you'd find funny or revealing about yourself. At least that's what it did for me. I'm going to start with The Secret Garden because that's the one I read first. Both of them I've actually listened on audiobook, and I didn't actually read the physical copy. So The Secret Garden was really, I'd seen the movie as a child, but I hadn't read the book, and it was really good, and I related a lot to the main character, and that's because I kind of was a spoiled child when I was little, in a way. Of course, not to the extent that Mary is, but Mary is a child who was raised in India during the British imperial times, and during the British Empire she has all these Indian servants, and she doesn't even know how to dress herself, and then her parents die, and she is forced to go and live with her uncle in England, and he's a very reclusive guy with a tragic past, and she is all alone there, doesn't go to school, and she basically has all this free time, and she feels really lonely, and in order to pass the time, she goes out in the garden. She learns to dress herself up and all that, but also she learns to tend to the garden, and then she discovers a secret garden by following a robin, and then she becomes friends with Dickon, who's a country boy, and it's funny because she is from another social class than he is, and he speaks with a Yorkshire accent, and she tries to imitate him because that's suddenly so cool because she finally has a friend, and then he shows her the ways of nature and the world, and then she finds out that her cousin has also been living in the same house, but he has been taught kind of like Munchausen by proxy kind of thing, of that he's been told that he's sick his whole life, so he's barely gone outside. So Mary's goal is to get him to go outside, because she realizes that she has become a much better person by going outside. She's become happier, and she is healthier, and she exercises, she plays jump rope and all these things that children do, rather than just hanging around indoors. And she wants to show this to her cousin, and all three in the end are friends, and it's just a lovely story. And Mary was really grumpy little girl at first, but that's because she never received really any love and didn't feel a connection to the world. And with the help of the Secret Garden and her friends, she becomes more connected to the world. She becomes more empathetic. She becomes just a nice person to be around. And she opens up a little bit and she feels more free and relaxed. I think that she is a real introvert. I would type her as an ISFP. She has a vivid imagination, I think, but she has been pretty dulled by just that her life has been pretty empty before this point. She is quite stubborn, which I relate to, and she goes her own way. She does her own thing, which I also really relate to. So I found that this was a book that really, and the descriptions of nature is just so lovely, and I think that they're really good for a child to read, but also for any adult to read that feels kind of disconnected from nature. So I felt that it was a really good book to read when I was depressed, like getting a little bit more just joy of life. So that's what I'd say about The Secret Garden. We're going to see about the Howl's Moving Castle. So Howl's Moving Castle is I'd watched a Ghibli movie, which I don't really understand why it's so many people's favorite Ghibli. For me, it is quite confusing, and the book is very different from the movie, which doesn't help my confusion, but it does make me appreciate a part of the story at least. There's quite a few differences. One big difference is the theme. Studio Ghibli's Howl's Moving Castle was made after the 9/11 attacks and the Iraq War and all that. So it was supposed to be a message about peace and war, which is not at all really talked about in the book. Another thing is talks a lot about love, which is not really a central focus in the book either. Something that is more present in the book than in the movie is also the nature of the magic, the contracts between the characters, also because there are a lot of magical contracts that are being made. Also, there's a whole thing about Howl being from Wales, which kind of disappears from later in the movie version. So in the book version, she kind of Sophie is given a curse by the Witch of the Waste, and I don't understand why in the movie she has to take care of the Witch of the Waste for some reason. What happens in the book is that Sophie has two sisters, and she's the eldest of the three sisters, so she feels this responsibility that she has to take over the family business. Then she realizes that her life is quite dull and boring, just mending hats. So she gets really frustrated, and then the Witch of the Waste curses her because she's a bitter old lady, I guess. And then Sophie decides that she has to go on her own adventure to find her fortune. And she's cursed to look like an old lady and to be like an old lady. And in a way, it kind of releases her from the bounds. There are all these pigeons around. I guess that they're in mating season. Okay. So she's been cursed, but she kind of finds a kind of liberation from the things that have been holding her back. By being an old lady, she can act in certain ways and be her true self in a way. But so she joins Howl, who is a wizard, in his moving castle, and in there's like a fire demon in the fireplace, and he's kind of in a contract with Howl, and she makes a contract with the fire demon to, like, if she manages to release the fire demon from his curse, then she will be released from her curse. And we kind of figure out that Howl is well, we don't figure out anything. Howl is a mysterious figure. He has many faces and is very different from day to day, and that is quite confusing. That is kind of part of the whole magical world. But the thing is, I found that it was really inspiring to see how Sophie deals with this becoming old thing. I don't think that it's talked about in the, like, children's media, at least, or not even in other kinds of media, that becoming old is not bad. Like, aging is not terrible. And I think that that's, good for children to see as well. Another thing is also the fact that Sophie learns to, like, stand up for herself and give herself what she deserves, rather than just, like, accepting her fate. She decides to, be part of things. It's also quite a comedic book. There are quite a few, like, silly things, like Howl somehow was really into rugby, and also Howl is very petty and silly, and that's, like, it's the end of the world when his hair gets dyed the wrong color. He's like, it's the end of the world, and then, like, he devises these silly plans where, he doesn't want to be tied to any commitment, so he really wants to be free, but he ends up, like, creating all these scenarios just to rid himself of all responsibility, which is quite funny. I find that there is a theme of, like, familial love, where Sophie is really protective of her sisters, but then her sisters have also been affected by magic, so it's a weird book. It's not like the usual story that you would read, and I think it's brimming with any ideas, so I think that it would really be good for an INFP to read it. Like, silly stories, it's a little bit like Terry Pratchett style. I like the whimsical nature of things, and, like, everything is just like, okay, well, now this is happening. It's not like it doesn't need 10,000 explanations. But so I think that those two books are really good for an INFP to read. One of them is more about, like, FI, an FI child, and the other one is a little bit more NE oriented. Both of them are children's stories, but could really be, I really appreciated reading them as an adult, because I've also been reading some pretty intense stuff in the meantime, so I think that it was just a nice break. So that's all I had to say for these two books. Tell me what you guys think. What did you read these books? What do you think about them? Is there any book that you would recommend that I should read? I'm open to any discussions. Have a great day. Bye.